What is going on, everybody? I know that prediction markets seem to be something that interests a lot more people than traditional crypto markets, and personally, I've been diving in headfirst. This channel may even become more focused around prediction markets, but in this video, I want to help break down my process to go through what's called a prediction market to what's called a mention market. Mention markets are words, phrases, keywords, number of words, things that are said during a live speech that you can essentially trade or speculate on. And tomorrow we have a big one. It is FOMC for September, in which Jerome Powell will be giving his remarks. And I want to break down the entire process that allowed me to find 7 different markets that I think are the best plays based on likelihood from previous data to now and where we're at. So let's get right into it. So you can see we got 2 different markets. What we're looking at here is Kalshi and then of course Polymarket. There's 2 separate mention markets with different words, different odds, different topics that you can start to dive into and find what I like to think is the best value for this. So of course you have some of these quote guaranteed words, things that they'll say off the bat: restrictive, energy, balance of risk, balance sheet. Will they say cut 3 times? That could be a decent odd considering many people are pricing in a 25 bips or 0.25% rate cut. Of course, we could go through all this, say every word and help you understand it. But what I want to actually focus on here is how and what I do to figure out these odds. So the first thing that I do is actually fire up ChatGPT. There's a model on ChatGPT here that allows us to use what's called the thinking model. The thinking model gives us an opportunity to hone in on the data itself and do a little bit more time researching for us. So in this market, let me move myself over here. You can see I took a full screenshot of the Polymarket screen with all of the various odds here and asked, based on past FOMC meeting speeches, give me odds for these and what you would take here. Very blunt comment, very blunt statement. It thought for 6 minutes and 23 seconds and outlined a bunch of different stuff for us. So here's how they'd price it. It gave me a full table with some of the best odds. So the one that stuck out to me the most here is gold. I took gold because it gave us a 42% chance that Jerome Powell says gold 15 plus times. That's a 19-point edge. So our model here is taking past speeches, March 24th, December 24th, and June 24th, or June 25, December 24, March 2025, I believe May 2025, and then of course June and July. I don't even remember. Regardless, it's taking the past 4 FOMC speeches and giving us the likelihood that any of these statements have been said. Now, of course, this is not foolproof because topics change, market sentiment changes, and more. But right here, the goal of this for Jerome Powell was to ease inflation. Clearly, they may have missed the goal. So now what we're getting into is the actual data and use case for this. So we're taking a look here, and it found the goal at a 19% edge. So taking a look at Polymarket, what we can see right here is we have goal at 52%. So if we took no at 49, this has now dropped down pretty nicely for us. We got in at 46.3 cents. We're already up slightly. And when we look at this, it has it closer to 42. The market opened up at 61%. 61%. Where did I just go? I don't know where I just went. Oh, there we go. So we already have a slight swing. 61%, it should be closer to 42, which would actually give us a 58% on the no side. So when we look at this, it's now at 52. That's dropped down 9 points already towards our favor. Finding these early and getting in early is always ideal. We also took tariffs 15 plus times as no, anchored 3 plus times as yes, and Trump by name no at 80 cents. That's now up to 82. This yes is now up to 71. So we're up nicely on this. No is now up to 57. So we're up on all 4 of these right now. How did I get to those conclusions? Well, we had to do this model, right? So it broke down all of the times it said, gave us the confidence score. And what we can see is where some of these higher confidences are. Trump is its most confident. Comment all the way up as well. That's a 15 base point word by yes for them to say comment. And then it gave us some rationale. Good afternoon. He opens every speech with it. Recession appears in May. Anchored in tariffs for the 2025 transcripts mentions them a lot amid trade policy questions. So the March Q&A and May and July Q&A, which were the last 3. So that makes me feel more confident considering tariffs are still on the table. China tariffs are coming up. We've just adjusted a bunch of European tariffs and trade deals and more. Now, when we start to look at this by ordered by best edge, Goal 15 plus times. It likes it on the no. 15's a lot for goal and goals. He says it, but not that much. Likes Trump, avoids names for direct mentions. Anchored 2025 rhetoric and keeping expectations well anchored shows up repeatedly. And I think that will, even with a cut, continue to be what is stated here. So as we look here, they're treating these as prepared remarks plus the full Q&A. Only adjusting stuff and looking at what's being said by Powell and not by the Q&A askers. September's an SEP meeting, hence the strong bias for the word median. So median participant for SEP meetings, March, June, September, and December. It featured repeated median talk in the dot plot SEP remarks. And that's why median is near certain in the September SEP. So if we look, we can find median on this. It's got it at 96. So if you want to take a small fly on this, you can buy yes that Powell will say median. If you don't understand what these markets are, before we get back into it, mention markets, like we said, are ways for you to buy specific words or phrases, and if Powell says them or does not say them. So in this situation, we're taking yeses if they say this word, no if they do not. Very straightforward. But now continuing down our research for this, I continue to ask how many times each of these were said. So for goal, for example, it broke down the last 4 meetings: July 2025, May 2025, March 2025, and December 2024. So what we have here was in July, it was said 11 times, May 13 times, March 11 times, December 13 times. All 4 of those are under the goal. So that's exactly what we like. Hitting 15 looks uncertain, which is why we ended up hammering that goal 15 plus times for no on the coin flip expectation here. So that's starting to already shift in our favor. It does look like it's a coin flip. That's exactly what it is. Obviously, there's still real capital involved, so do not risk anything that you cannot afford to lose. As we continue to look, I also wanted to see tariffs. Tariffs for a quick word count for tariffs, excluding non-tariff or tariffed. The reason you want to look at this is because you want to get down into the rules, right? So as we look at these, any usage of the word, regardless of context, will count towards that resolution. Pluralization and possessive of the word will count towards the resolution of this market. However, other forms will not count. So the reason that I bring up that will not count, because non-tariff does not count. Tariffed theoretically could count. It's past tense. But when we look at this, July 7 mentions, May 17, March 10, December 0. The reason that I'm interested in this, despite May having higher odds, because May was when we first had that meeting post tariffs. So now that's going to be mentioned a lot, especially with forward looking, especially with Q&A, and that's where it gets us up to that number. So I then continued that. How many times was anchored said in previous? This is where ChatGPT's thinking model comes into play, because we can use historical data to actually analyze these trends. So right here, we can see July 30th, 3 uses of anchored, no standalone anchor. May, 3 uses of anchored. March, 3 uses of anchored. December, 1 to 2. And 2 to 4 per presser. Anchored 3 plus times has cleared pretty often. So that's the main thing that I like about that. And that's what gave us our Polymarket plays here. Trump has never been noted in any of these past 4 meetings. Anchored has been hit 3 times in the last 3, missed in December. Tariffs was hit once, and goal has not been hit in any of the last 4. So we're playing our odds here in these favors. Because of the likelihood of that chance, it's exactly why we wanted to play into those markets. Now we can take a look at Kalshi. The other interesting market here, because Kalshi gives us different words, different verbiage, different context, and does not have the same rules for this. So you need exact wording for these markets, which is why it gets interesting for me to look at tariff inflation, which is actually going against me here because it's starting to move. We have stagflation, I took the no. Lisa Cook, I took the no. And Trump, I took the no. The reason being, and we use the exact same model. I zoomed out and took images for both of these markets split into 2. So you can actually see where these markets are and broke it down. I think we only dropped down. I took it from here down because I'm not too interested in these markets, to be completely honest. And we could even run one in real time just so that you can actually see how this process works. So I take an image right here, and we'll take the top, copy this, put it in here. Now do the same analysis. Give me your likelihood, what odds you'd give it, and past mentions from speeches for all of these as well, because we've already asked it that context. So it's giving us this research, and it's going to spend probably 6 to 7 minutes to actually break this down. We're not going to wait for it. We'll cut it in and show you what happens after. But here's how it did for those other markets that I was very interested in. And this is where, let me move me back over to this side. This is where it gets very interesting for me. Because we uploaded 2 images, it gave us set 1 and set 2 for all of this. So as we take a look at this, right? Here's the trade ready sheet. Tariff inflation, all one word. Exact phrase is unlikely. The app is giving us 44%. The model gives us a 15% chance. That is a 29% difference. Huge swing on that. So that's why I took tariff inflation. And when we start to look at the exact wording here, and we dive in, it was said exactly in March of 2025. That was the only time for the exact phrase. Many times, however, Powell leans on the phrases tariffs raised prices more than the word tariff inflation. So that's a big reason that I went with this. We obviously discussed the Trump line. Does he say Trump? The likelihood is very slim on that. And that's the same reasoning for the Lisa Cook line. Because historically, they have not mentioned governors' names and has never mentioned it previously. So this gives us a 20% odd. We took it at 3%. That's what the model gives us. Huge discrepancies like that, over 15%, is usually a decent swing for that play. When we look at something like anchor, which Kalshi only gives us the singular word, 10% if exact anchor, 60 if it's anchor or anchored. If it excludes anchored, buy no. If it includes anchored, buy yes. However, when we look at the rules here, the reason anchor is so low is because they have to say the exact word. Not anchored, not past tense, none of that. And that's where we get into those odds. Stagflation was the other interesting one here. Because of with stagflation, it has a 6% versus 26% on this. Historically, Powell has stayed away from the word stagflation. It has been a word that he has not been a fan of and has done everything he can to essentially stay away. So if we can find stagflation here, 26% chance he says it. This has it at 6. He avoids the label. Very blunt, very simply put. And when we start to take a look at when they were said, stagflation gives us 8% odds, and it has not been said in any of the previous 4 meetings. So yes, it is a risk because rate cuts happening now. Many speculate it could be because of stagflation. I think Powell will still avoid the word entirely. You can also see here anchored was the big one, but we're not looking for anchored, only anchor. There's some other odds in here that it gives you, and this is where you can start to use your own research on this. Dot plot 28 versus 25. Reporters frequently push on the dot plot, and he sometimes repeats the term, even though he prefers SEP. So if there was another market I did not take, it would probably be the word dot plot. That is one that's probably the most interesting here. Dot plot for the yes side would probably be the most interesting in case Powell repeats that word. But in short, what I wanted to highlight here is how I do the quick level, high level research and look at these markets. How do I break them down? How do I analyze them? How do I use historical data to find trends? And how do we trade the trend? Of course, you should look at both prediction markets from Polymarket to Kalshi and find which markets have better odds for certain words. We got Trump at that 20-cent mark for no. I like that because, well, obviously, you could see that the likelihood of him saying the president's name is slim. This administration, the sitting president, those words have been said, but not by name. Powell does a great job ignoring names. That's why we should take advantage of those odds. Of course, this may not even net you the 10,000 X's you get from meme coins, but consistent base hits add up. So taking that 80%, you get 20%, that's a 25% gain. That's a great return. You can continue to stack those, increasing your bankroll. And these mentioned markets happen so frequently that there's almost always a market to trade, whether it's earnings, whether it's Apple keynotes, whether it's government markets, whether it's press conferences from the president, vice president, or other government officials. There's always mentioned markets and there's always historical data. I think that prediction markets are the future of trading. It's going to financialize everything. Every market is a market. And I'm here to help you figure out where those edges are and how I do research on these different markets and what leads me to take the picks that I do. If you learned a thing or two in this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment below. And as always, follow me on X at EasyEatsBodega. Tune into Kick Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time at kick.com/easyeats. And leave a comment below on what words you like for this market. Let's see how it plays out tomorrow. Maybe I rip a recap. I guess you'll have to subscribe and see. We'll catch you next time. Keep it easy. Peace.